everyone, today I'm super lucky to be able to interview the incredible Rebecca Newman. Rebecca is an incredible poet and children's writer. Some of her poetry has been featured in the school magazine and a bunch of other places online. And she has a poem, sorry, got stuck on the word there. A poem in an anthology which is due out in 2020. She is also the current recipient of the Paperbird Fellowship, which means she's a writer in residence for the whole duration of Term 4. I find Rebecca to be an inspirational author because of how she runs workshops to get kids excited about reading and writing and poetry, and I think that is incredible. Thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Thank you for having me, Amani.
Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Did you always know you wanted to be a writer or not really?
I always wanted to be a writer, even when I was very small. And then when I was in year 8, which used to be the first year of high school when I was growing up, we had to do a project on ourselves. And one of the things I wrote in there is that I wanted to be a published writer. By the time I was 21, which I didn't actually make, I think you've made better progress on my goal than I have. But I did manage to get some poetry published later on. So even though I didn't make it by 21, I still kind of knew what I wanted to do.
You still achieved it.
13. I did, that's right. Shouldn't have put an end point on it.
Yeah, I think it's whenever you're ready to put yourself out there in your writing.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So I got there in the end.
Definitely. And you're such a good writer. I've read a bunch of your poetry.
Oh, thank you very much.
Where did you get the inspiration for your poems? Because they're just absolutely amazing. I want to know where you get them from.
Okay, so most of my ideas come from things that are happening around me. So when my kids were growing up, funny things that they would say, or trips to the park that we were doing together, or arguments that they would be having amongst themselves, which as a grown-up you found a bit funny, but you didn't let them know that it was funny. Or things that happened to me when I was a kid, so things that I remember feeling or doing, I put into a poem. And we're quite a musical household, so there's a lot of rhythm going on at home when everyone's doing their practices and that kind of thing, and that gets into my poetry as well. So I do like a bit of rhythm in my poems. They don't always rhyme, a lot of them rhyme, but they don't always, but they always have pretty good rhythm, because that's what I like in my poems.
Yeah, a poem doesn't have to rhyme.
No, they don't.
I just like the ones with the rhymes and the rhythm, and it's just like, it's nice.
Kind of puts you in a certain mood.
Yeah,
kind of ones
like
you
an
like.
upbeat or a down, or it's just really lively.
Something that connects with how you feel about
Yes,
things.
definitely. What has been your favourite piece of poetry to write so far?
Okay, so I don't really have a favourite that I've written, because I write a lot of different styles. Some of mine are silly, some of them are serious and thoughtful and that kind of thing, and I think it's a bit hard to compare them. But my favourite ones to write while I'm writing them, I run a choral speaking club for a group of students from year 3 to 6 in a primary school. And at the end of the school year, they have a Christmas concert every year, and I write them a poem for that Christmas concert to perform as a group. And I really love writing those poems because they really like rhythm and onomatopoeia, so things that sound like the things that they are, and they get into it. So while I'm writing it, I know what they're going to do with the poem. I can see it in my head as I'm writing it, and so I can make changes and think, oh, they'll love to do this bit. And that's what I enjoy excuse me, writing the most, because I can see in my head what the kids are going to do with that poem when they perform it. So they're the most fun ones to write. I like those the best.
That sounds awesome.
Thank you. The kids have good fun with it, and it's actually really good fun for me as well to see what they're doing with it.
Yeah, because while you're writing it, you're like, oh, I can make this.
I can, and we often put the teachers and the principals' names in there too, so they can have a little bit of fun with the teachers being part of the poem. One of the kids will dress up like the teacher. That's always extra layer of fun. So it's good fun writing those ones. Yeah. Write what you know.
Write what you know.
That's right.
You do workshops at schools. Have you had any? What would have to be your favourite part about doing workshops?
Oh, okay. So when I'm working with particularly the younger students, where you don't think that they can generally write poetry yet because they're year ones and twos, very small. They often really surprise you with the sorts of words or ideas that they come out with, and they don't have an idea about what poetry should be yet, because no one's told them that yet, or they haven't really thought about it a lot. So they're very expressive, and they really enjoy it and just get into it without thinking too much about it. And I learn a lot from them about my own poetry when they're writing things down and brainstorming their ideas and that kind of thing. So working together with particularly the youngest ones is really good fun. And then when they get a bit older, it's really interesting to watch how they develop and change as they're growing up as well. So yeah, and then when they're writing as older kids, again, you can see where they've come from.
Yeah.
And what they're writing now. That's very exciting.
Yeah. Younger kids just have like the element to surprise you, because you're like, oh yeah, they probably don't know that much stuff, and it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Well, the best bit about being in primary school too is that you don't have the expectations. Once you get a bit older, you're kind of like, oh, this is not what poems should be. When you're younger, you just have a go. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's good. They're not inhibited at all, and it's really good fun.
Yeah, they just want to just try things, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So, sticking with the theme of workshops, have you had any embarrassing, funny, straight up awkward moments, or has it all been pretty smooth?
It's not always smooth, because when you're working with, never work with children or animals, it's unpredictable, but mostly it's been pretty good. I did have one in the early days when this was about 10 years ago, I had my first time that I was doing a poetry workshop with a group of students. They were year ones, so about 6 years old, and there were about 5 of them, and we'd mostly been working on story writing. And I said, okay, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a bit of poetry writing. And they hadn't listened to a lot of poetry yet. So I thought, right, the best way to start is to read them a few poems so that they can listen to some examples. And I brought in a book of Michael Rosen's poetry, and I picked one, and it happened to be a poem that was like a conversation. So a dad and a kid. The kid was asking lots of tough questions like, why is there air, and that kind of thing. And yeah, exactly, the dad's face was like that. So the answers in the poem, the kid would ask a question, and then the dad would have this, I don't know. It was a really silly kind of fun poem. And the kids had never heard something like that before. So when I read to the end of it, there was this silence, and I thought, oh, okay, they didn't really get what was going on there. Maybe I should try another one. And then all 5 of them stood up, stole the book from me, and went and sat in the corner and read the other poems to each other. And I thought, okay, that works too. So that was the rest of the lesson. They just read each other poems from this book, because they'd never come across that sort of thing before. It was very, very mind-blowing to them that could be a form of creative writing. Yeah, and then we went on to write our own conversation poems, and it was really good fun. They got a lot out of it, but it was quite funny when I was sitting there and I had no book anymore, and they basically were doing their own thing over
Just
in the corner with the book.
Just like you're reading it to them, and you're like, okay, they didn't get that. Okay, like it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Where'd it go?
Yeah, so yeah, get into the poetry, guys. It was really good. Yeah, that was quite fun. And then we went on from there.
When you're a rich and famous poet, what is something frivolous that you're going to spend money on? Anything at all?
It would be great to think be a rich and famous poet. That would be wonderful. Frivolous, okay. So once you've taken care of like all your family and save the world and that kind of thing, and you have money left over, I'd probably like to build a writing studio out the back of somewhere. So I had my own exactly dedicated space the way that I wanted it, with a comfy chair and a bed if I could have little naps during the day and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'd have to have either a big lotto win or a really big, rich and famous author. I think I have to work on that for a fair while. One poem in a magazine at a time is a pretty slow way to earn your fortunes. Lots of poems.
We get there. I would definitely believe in you.
Oh, great. So when I'm 100, I'll invite you over to my studio. Come
Write
and
my
see
books.
That's right. You can use it on the days I'm not in there. Deal.
So now we're into the speed questions.
Okay.
What are you writing at the moment?
Okay, so I'm in at Paperbird in term 4 and I'm working on a children's poetry collection, so a book of poems all by me, and at the moment the title is Rules for Sneezing, and it's pitched at children aged kind of 8 to 11. So yeah, a children's poetry collection. That's my main focus right now.
I'm sure it'll be a hit amongst kids.
Oh, thank you very much.
It'll be awesome bestseller.
You're my first fan.
What is your favourite ice cream flavour?
Okay, so I really like vanilla bean. If it's got actual vanilla beans in it, not fake vanilla, that's my favourite. But if you can't have vanilla bean, then I like chocolate. You look like a chocolate fan too. Excellent.
Chocolate, vanilla. I can't stand the fake vanilla either. Like, you gotta have the actual little
vanilla.
grains of vanilla.
That's
bean
right,
in
the
there.
little black specks, they're the best bit.
It's just so amazing.
Sounds good.
How long does it normally take you to write one of your poems?
Okay, so it varies a little bit depending on what sort of poem I'm writing, but often it will take about half a day to get to a draft that I'm happy with, and then just a bit more tweaking over the next couple of days. About half a day for the first finished draft that's workable.
Who is your favourite or most inspirational author?
Okay, so if we're talking books, Kate DiCamillo is my favourite children's author. If we're talking poetry, I don't really have a favourite. I've got so many children's poets that I like reading. So in Australia, Sally Murphy, Lorraine Marwood, and some overseas ones. Michael Rosen is one of my favourites, and Spike Milligan, quite funny. If you're in the mood for funny poetry, that kind of thing, yeah. But I don't really have one favourite. I like to read pretty widely.
Same. You can't pinpoint favourite author. It's like trying to pick a favourite book or a favourite child.
That's right. Yes.
It's impossible because they're all so amazing.
Yes. It's good to have a little bit of everything, like a smorgasbord.
Yes. Do you prefer cats or dogs?
I prefer cats. I know that you prefer dogs. The problem with cats is I'm really allergic to them, so I can only wave at them from a distance. But when I was younger, I used to just put up with really itchy eyes and asthma, and now I'm a bit older, I don't have as much time to recover from that, so I just wave at them when they're in the corner.
Just like, hey cat.
Hi, pussycat. Yeah,
Hi.
that's right.
We can still be friends because I really get along with you, so I might have to put my disliking for cats aside.
You might just raise them up one level.
Just a little bit on the scale of disliking to them. Raise them up a bit.
Okay then.
Do you prefer reading ebooks or hard books?
I'm a hard book reader. Yes, I like to know how much further I've got to go in the book. I like to be able to feel how many pages are left
The
still to
smell
come.
too.
I'm not a big smell fan, I have to say. No, I'm not. And people that say they really love cracking open a box of new books, one day when I can crack open a box of new books, the smell of the new book is not going to be the thing that gets me excited, but rifling through the pages is going to be very exciting. Yeah, I find the inks very stinky.
I prefer the smell of the pages to the ink. The ink is strong.
Very
It's
strong.
the page.
It has a
feel
faint
smell.
vanilla smell, must admit, the pages. Maybe it's linked to the vanilla ice cream thing.
You never know. Maybe the books are produced next to a vanilla ice cream factory.
That's quite a good business idea. Have a look at a vanilla ice cream. Everyone's happy.
The best two things, ice cream and book together. Just
A winning combination.
I know. Just don't put them together.
And you don't drip the ice cream on.
Yeah, I know. Otherwise, that'll just be bad. Where's your favourite place to write?
Okay, so in at Paperbird Books is my favourite place. I have a little studio in there. It's fairly quiet and there are lots of creative people coming and going, so you can go and have chats with other creative people that are doing their own illustrations or books or writing. But I'll only have that for term 4. So my usual favourite spot for writing is in a desk chair at my desk at home, because it's ergonomic chair, keeps my back healthy, and I'm comfy writing there. And I slide into that space, and I know this must mean I'm writing now, so that's quite helpful.
Do you remember the first book you ever read, or your favourite childhood book?
Okay, so poetry book or any book?
Any book.
Any book, alright. So the very first book I remember reading was a novel by Enid Blyton called The Children of Cherry Tree Farm, and it was a gift from my auntie. And I know that I read lots of books before then because my mum joined us up to libraries when we were really small, but that was the first one I remember reading all by myself, and I really loved it. I thought it was great.
I have to check that out. Sounds cool.
It's an adventure out in the woods because it's set in England. And yeah, kids camping out overnight in the wilderness.
What's your biggest achievement so far? It can be writing, it can be journal, it can be anything.
Okay, so I think probably having a poem accepted for an anthology. So the book that's coming out in the UK in 2020 is called Fire Burn, Cauldron Bubble, Magical Poems Chosen by Paul Cookson, which is a very long title, but that will have my poem in it, and it will be very exciting to hold a book in my hands that has my poem in it. I think that's my biggest achievement so far.
Well, it's amazing that you got into an anthology. That's like so incredible.
Very exciting, and the other thing is you have lots of really interesting poems in there along with mine, so I get to read everyone else's poems as well. Bonus. That's right.
Do you have any big goals for the future? Any new writing being released soon?
So I have, the school magazine has 2 more of my poems in the wings, waiting to, they kind of sometimes see if there are themes rising, I think, in the collection, so my poems will be published at some point with them. And I have a couple of picture books that I've sent out to slush piles for publishers to consider. And then, yeah, just more poems. I can get my collection finished, so that's my main goal at the moment.
And finally, do you have any advice for young or writers or poets?
Okay, so I know that some of your other interviewees have said read, and I'm going to add to that too and say read some poetry, go to your library and ask the librarian where the poetry section is, or go to 821 and have a poke around in there yourself in the children's section. So poems are usually on the shelves in the non-fiction section of the library, and read as many poems as you can so you can find the kind of style that you love best of all and the poets that you love best of all, and that will really help your writing as well. It will help your story writing and your poetry writing if you read a lot of poems.
Definitely, reading is one of the most important parts about writing.
I think so, yeah. All that language and vocabulary and wordplay.
And the imagination that you can get from
That's
writing.
right, looking at how other people look at the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very handy. Yeah, so that's my tip.
Amazing advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me interview you. This has been incredible.
Thank you, Amani. It's been lovely chatting with writing with you.
Make sure to like and share the video so we can share how extraordinary Rebecca Newman is.
Thank you very much.